The ARC 3.0 preview is officially here, which means it's time for us to predict what the best ARC 3.0 class is going to be right here, right now. And you might be thinking, Mac, why do we need to predict what will be the best ahead of time? Won't we know which is the best when we actually get to use it on August 23rd? And to that I say, look, first of all, it's fun, but if that isn't a good enough reason for you, then check this out. If you're interested in participating in the Day 1 raid releasing on August 26th, you have 3 days of preparation between when the season releases and when the raid comes out, meaning you want to be able to do as much of that preparation as possible ahead of time. Part of that preparation is going to be heading into those daily legend lost sectors to grind out some high stat roll exotic armor pieces to slap on for whatever the best ARC 3.0 builds are. So if we can definitively determine what the best ARC 3.0 class is here today, then that gives you the next 6 days before the new season to potentially grind out a Raid Influx, a Curious of the Falling Star, or maybe some Geomag stabilizers so that your 3 days before the raid in the new season can be spent grinding for those final column artifact mods and enjoying the new content. So let's start diving into this bad boy, shall we? First, we have the new buff Amplified, which grants an increase to movement speed and weapon handling. Cool thing about this buff is that no specific aspects or fragments are required for this buff. They will simply offer additional ways to become amped. By default, all ARC classes become amplified after rapidly defeating targets with any ARC damage, and after sprinting for a few seconds, an amplified guardian will speed up even faster and gain some damage resistance specifically in PvE. As far as debuffs go, we have Blind and Jolt. Blinded enemies will act the same way enemies currently act while under the effects of blinding grenade launchers, with the added benefit that they will be unable to shoot, and jolted enemies will send chain lightning out to other nearby enemies when damaged. Very nice. ARC 3.0 also has IONIC traces becoming class agnostic, meaning all classes will now have access to them when they were a Warlock specialty previously. Just a reminder that IONIC traces are objects that, when collected, add energy to all of your abilities, similar to elemental wells. Now, looking at the class-specific stuff, hunters are keeping their signature ARC staff. No Blade Dancer, I know. But the good news is that the reflect element of the ARC staff is now intrinsic on the super, which is nice to hear. But bringing one super to the 3.0 sandbox just isn't going to cut it. So for the first time in 3.0 subclass history, we are getting a brand new super called Gathering Storm. Here, the hunter leaps into the air, hurling their staff into the ground or enemy like a spear. Upon impact, the staff emits a damaging burst that jolts nearby enemies. Soon after, a giant bolt of lightning strikes the staff and overcharges it, creating a large damage zone around it for several seconds. And while overcharged, the staff sends out arcs of lightning to damage any enemies that move near it. We'll talk a bit more about how good this will be in a second, but first we have to talk about the rest of the Hunter toolkit. For melee, we still have Combination Blow, where kills with it will refund dodge energy, increase melee damage, and restore some health. The Disorienting Blow melee ability will also return, blinding enemies that are struck. Now, you might be wondering, okay, where is the Slide melee though? Well, that takes us to our aspects, the first of which is that seemingly missing melee ability, Tempest Strike, with the added effect that it will now jolt enemies in its path. Our second aspect is Flow State, where defeating a jolted opponent will cause us to become amplified and grants us faster dodge recharge, reload speed, and higher damage resistance while amplified. Finally, we have got Lethal Current, where after dodging, the hunter's melee lunge range is increased and their next melee attack jolts the target and creates a damaging lightning aftershock. If you use this with the Arc Staff super, after dodging, your next staff light attack will hit twice. And if that wasn't enough, hitting a jolted enemy with a melee attack will blind them. Now, Arc Hunters have quite literally never been good in the PvE space, with the exception of Liar's Handshake, Combination Blow, and 1-2 Punch for some cheesy Gambit boss one-hit kills. But that could possibly change with 3.0. However, it is 100% reliant on how much damage that new Gathering Storm super is bringing to the table. If it is good enough to compete with the likes of Thundercrash, then we could have something interesting on our hands. If not, I reckon Arc Hunter will only be seen in PvP while Void continues to shine in the PvE space. I will say though, that new Flow State aspect looks super nice for the Arc Hunter's neutral game. Feels like a juiced up heart of the pack from Void 2.0. Now, another thing about ARC 3.0 Hunter is that we are actually going to see the return of Blink, which is insanely exciting if you play PvP. I would say approximately 99% of PvE players do not care about blink whatsoever though, so for the purposes of this video analysis, I'm not going to factor that into the equation all too much. Now, if you're excited about Arc 3.0 and are curious what Arc 3.0 builds are going to be the best, do me a favor and subscribe to my channel real quick. I do a ton of build guide videos and plan on releasing at least one Arc 3.0 build video for each class that shows you all of the mods, stats, combos, exotics, weapons, and strategies that you'll need to be an absolute beast on whatever Arc 3.0 class you are rocking. With that being said, let's talk about Warlocks, who are seeing the return of Chaos Reach and Stormtrance. Chaos Reach seems to be identical to its former self, however Stormtrance is going to be the best of both worlds from the 2.0 days, having both Landfall, which creates a shockwave underneath the player on cast, and Ionic Blink, allowing the Warlock to teleport during the super on the new version of Stormtrance. I'd expect Chaos Reach to be the go-to for PvE still, but it's nice to have some formidable alternative options in the PvE sandbox. For melee abilities, Warlocks will have the Ball Lightning melee that will zap enemies down from above, and Chain Lightning, which will jolt the primary target and send chain damage to surrounding enemies. Chain Lightning seems like the winner in that category for PvE. Our first Warlock aspect is Arc Soul, which we all know very well already, but a new little piece of functionality here is that when amplified, any Arc Soul you have or gain is supercharged, increasing its rate of fire. Next up, we have Lightning Surge, where the Warlock can activate their melee while sliding to transform into a ball of lightning and teleport forward, calling down a field of lightning bolts at the exit point that jolts the target. Who made this one? Warlocks definitely win the style points category for Arc 3.0. There is absolutely no question. I legitimately cannot wait to see how this looks in game. Our final aspect is Electrostatic Mind, where Arc ability kills and kills on Arc debuffed enemies, aka blinded and jolted enemies, create Ionic traces, and when you collect any Ionic trace, you become amplified as well. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Warlock is looking pretty freaking good. Chaos Reach and Arc Souls being available together is kind of crazy. The biggest problem when playing an Arc 3.0 Warlock is going to be choosing between Lightning Surge and Electrostatic Mind. Let's be real, from a functional perspective, Electrostatic Mind seems like the move through and through, but good God, does Lightning Surge just sound like the coolest thing in the world. Regardless, I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. And if you're liking what you're seeing so far, do me a favor and slap that like button down below. Moving on to contender number 3, we have the Titan, receiving Thunder Crash and Fist of Havoc as its Arc 3.0 supers. Similar to the Warlock's Chaos Reach, Thunder Crash is remaining the same, but the Fist of Havoc is getting a few touches. The slam radius is now adjusted to be about halfway between the former Arc 2.0 top and bottom trees, with the slam leaving a damaging field in its wake, while slamming from the air causes a damaging AoE effect. I'm going to be honest, this wording kind of confuses me because I feel like the Fist of Havoc slam is already an AoE ability, but we'll see when we get to play it. Thunder Crash is probably going to be the go-to pick for PvE anyway, if we're being honest. A huge change coming to Arc 3.0 Titan, though, is the brand new Thruster class ability, which allows the Titan to burst in their throttle direction at speed, performing a quick first-person evade comparable in distance to a hunter's dodge. Wait, does this sound like the description of Twilight Garrison? Because it kind of sounds like the description of comment below right now. Does this sound like Twilight Garrison? But I know Twilight Garrison is third person, and this is first person, but the movement tech of it kind of sounds like Twilight Garrison, which the idea of having Twilight Garrison on a class ability on Titan is insanely exciting. Bungie is absolutely knocking it out of the park on Arc 3.0 so far. And if that wasn't exciting enough, Arc Titans get a brand new melee as well called Thunderclap, which allows Titans to hold melee to charge up Arc energy that can be unleashed in either a quick, powerful jab or to be held and built up to be unleashed in a furious One Punch Man style blast that will devastate an opponent. Bungie's words, not mine. Titans are also keeping the Seismic Strike Shoulder Charge, God that's hard to say, which now blinds enemies. Using this melee while amplified will increase the radius of the blind and cause the blinding effect to last longer. Ballistic Slam is also remaining on the Titan subclass, seemingly staying the same as its current form. As for aspects, Titans are getting Touch of Thunder, which improves their grenades in the following ways as shown on screen right now. The noteworthy one here for me is the Pulse Grenade. Ionic Traces just seem like they're going to be super good, and bonus damage is always going to be a welcome thing. Next up is Juggernaut for all my D1 players, where sprinting with full class ability energy will grant a frontal shield that blocks damage. And finally, Knockout, where melee kills trigger health regeneration and make the Titan amplified. Additionally, the Titan's base melee becomes arc empowered when Knockout is active. Now, before we talk about which class is going to be the best, let's quickly touch on the 4 fragments that they showed us. Remember that fragments are class agnostic, meaning all 3 classes can use them. First, we have Spark of Beacons, where when the player is amplified, arc special weapon kills create a blinding explosion. Next up is Spark of Resistance, where when surrounded by enemies, the player has increased damage resistance. After that is Spark of Momentum, where sliding over heavy ammo will reload your weapon and grant a small amount of melee energy. Sliding over heavy ammo increases the amount of energy granted. And finally, we have Spark of Shock, where the player's arc grenades jolt enemies. So now that we know everything, who is going to be the best? Well, right now in Arc 2.0, the answer is obvious. Titans are the kings of Arc at the current moment due to their unrivaled burst damage with their Thunder Crash and Curious of the Falling Star combination. And to be 100% honest, I expect them to continue their reign of terror with the new additions of the Twilight Garrison class ability and Touch of Thunder and Juggernaut aspects. These guys are going to have burst damage, they're going to have mobility, and they're going to be tanky as all hell. That's not to say that they won't have competition, though. Warlocks are looking particularly spicy with the Chaos Reach Super and Arc Soul aspect combination. Perhaps they won't be able to compete in the DPS category, but I reckon Warlocks are going to be crazy good for ad clearing and team play based compositions. But what's up with the Hunter? I'm not gonna lie, they have a big question mark on their head right now. It all revolves around that new Gathering Storm super they have. If it's nuts and can go toe-to-toe with the other burst damage supers, then we might have something that can put up a fight on our hands. However, if it's lackluster, which it very well might be, I think Arc Hunters are going to be hanging out primarily in PvP. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Which class is going to be the Arc 3.0 PvE superstars and why? I'll make sure to read and respond to as many of your Arc 3.0 takes as I can. In the meantime, slap that good old like button if you enjoyed the watch and subscribe for the juiciest Arc 3.0 build videos coming up soon. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.